What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the debut album by American Idol singer Carrie Underwood and country singer Carrie Underwood. Basically, this product is called Some Hearts, and it came out in the fall of 2005. So this is a pretty seminal album across the 2000s decade. Generally, when you think of the 2000s, this would be one of those ones. Like when you think of probably like Eminem's The Marshall Mathers LP, and maybe like Green Day's American Idiot, and trying to think of like a metal album here, maybe like A Fever You Can't Sweat Out by Panic at the Disco, probably The Massacre by 50 Cent, Late Registration by Kanye West, Black Eyed Peas is Monkey Business, some of those type of ones. Just seminal type products that have a lot of importance within the 2000s decade. There's a lot more of these, obviously. I'd probably say there's probably one in there. Probably one of the ones by the Plain White T's, some of those type pitches. I'd probably say like maybe an album by Paramore, some of those type of ones. The 2007 one, Beyonce's Dangerously in Love. This is just a banner album and very extremely noteworthy album out of the 2000s decade. This was the highest selling album out of the year 2006 in the United States. So it outsold everything else from that particular year, just in the pitch behind it. And that includes some highlights in there like the leftover appeal of the Carter 2 by Lil Wayne, T.I.'s King. This pitches like that. This was an album that was just the defining one. And pretty much, think about it, like, I remember that 2006 was kind of an awkward year for music just within that pitch. Not so much awkward year, but just the pitch that it wasn't, like, when you think of, like, the early 2000s and, you had folks like Eminem, 50 Cent, some of those type of folks being predominant, it was just kind of the aspect that a lot of, like, Kelly Clarkson, there were just a lot of things that kind of popped up in, like, the early and or there were a lot of things that popped up in like the mid 2000s. Like there was something that like High School Musical was pretty popular in 2005, 2006, 2007. Carrie Underwood was pretty popular. There was like the Plain White Tees that were pretty popular. I mean, there just were some ones in there. There was like something else like, Miley Cyrus was pretty huge in like 2007, 2008. So there were just some pitches that, amalgamating every last single genre within the pitches of what particularly happened. It was just kind of a concept when you look after it from like a rap angle, the way things kind of were, sales were pretty terrible in 2006, 2007, 2008 because nothing was going platinum, just in the pitch behind it. But yeah, this particular album went 9 times platinum, almost diamond. Pretty good, pretty excellent type pitch. Kind of get this here just within the fair behind it. Just being able to say this continues to be the highest selling country album since the last 10 years, which I don't know which outsold this between 2005 or I don't know what outsold this after 2015. It might have been Taylor Swift or it might have been Jason Aldean. Not really sure as full bound as to who might have eventually outsold this product, but this is a pretty predominant country record. It's just a staple out of the second half of the 2000s. Just a large deal that's been pitched behind it. Once again, almost went diamond. I'd pretty much say by this stage, I'm surprised that this album has not gone diamond just with the pitch behind it. It's just an excellent type fare. It was just a big deal that lasted from about like the late summer of 2005 to like the winter of 2007. So it's just a pretty defining aspect that had a well-deserved lengthy kind of like chart appeal just with the pitch behind it. Got to the 6th single, had a lot of good appeals about it, and it was just kind of the concept. So it's just a good pitch to be able to have that. She had a similar type fare to Kelly Clarkson. Like I remember Kelly Clarkson's first few albums really were the ones that made the most noise. Not to say that Kelly Clarkson didn't make noise later, but it's just kind of the pitch that I think she had the initial kind of American Idol back in some of those type pitches. But it just makes me wonder like the appeal. Like I know that Carrie Underwood dropped an album in the fall of 2007 right on the heels of this particular album. So it's within the pitch of me questioning how those particular albums did in terms of their decorum about it. It's not, and I don't doubt like the appeal and the quality of them, but just questioning if she continued to have the backings for this pitch to happen, because it just doesn't feel as full bound like Carrie Underwood is full bound promoted within the same pitch. It's not to say like I think that she isn't, but it's just kind of within the fare that I do remember the conduct of some of these songs back in the day, like thinking of songs like Before He Cheats and Wasted and some of those type of ones. I mean, I wasn't, and maybe even possibly catching Inside Your Heaven, which was a #1 single as far as those pitches can happen, but just kind of within the concept that this felt like an album. What I mean by this here is this felt like an album that had the crossover type of appeal that wasn't just exclusively country, but also had some gems on here that, depending upon the right day when you listen to contemporary or rhythmic radio, you would have caught some of these. I definitely feel like songs like Inside Your Heaven, Before He Cheats, Wasted, some of those type of ones, maybe even Don't Forget to Remember Me on the Right Day might have had like the appeal behind that, but it's just within the pitch and just as far as saying that just kind of happens to be the aspect. But yeah, classic album here just has the impacts, the making of a classic, just had all the appeals and the honors of being able to do it. just the concept of just having this particular type a tone behind it. Very lasting album. Just has, and it has like good songwriting, good hooks on here. Just the pitch behind it. Just being able to say that it just kind of feels like one of the more vanilla country albums from a female singer out of like the late 2000s. Like Taylor Swift did pretty good as well. I don't know like her 2006, 2008 albums as much yet, but I would have to say this is probably one of those ones that competed with that as far as those pitches can happen. Just in terms, like when you think of like the blossoming kind of MySpace era that was happening, this feels like one of those signature kind of MySpace albums, just like the Plain White Tees and like Panic at the Disco and Hollywood Undead and some of those type of folks that were just signature to that particular era. This is one of those ones that helped kick off a movement. So this is also a trailblazing type project. You know, I would have to say that Carrie Underwood was pretty trendy just in the concept between being on American Idol and then also having like a part of like the blossoming kind of MySpace movement where a lot of these songs were just like signature to, or a lot of these songs from some hearts are probably signature to folks' playlists just within the pitch behind it as far as those fairs can happen, just within like the standard fare of just like the popularity just in like a more kind of contemporary and just kind of word of mouth type format just in the pitch. So it's just kind of the concept. It's very people's choice type project here within the pitch, but it also did pretty well with critics. So it's just within the appeal. But yeah, so there were released 5 full-blown singles out this product. The single Inside Your Heaven was the 6th single, but this is actually probably the first single that came off this project because it was the American Idol single that got her to #1 and got her name out there, something like that. I don't know as full-bound because I don't know as much full-blown about American Idol, but just in the pitch, that is a bonus song this album. So this album more or less had 6 singles about it, which is pretty an excellent type concept that she included that song in here, which is pretty dope. So Inside Your Heaven is like a strengthy kind of power ballad, I'd have to say here. Just a grand makeshift pop grab, I'd have to say, within that pitch. Just a grand makeshift pop grab, I'd have to say. Definitely gets you to work in like a driven mixture, I'd have to say, within that tone behind it. So it's just one of those type of ones, if you're just needing that kind of push over the hill as far as those pitches can happen, just get you there, get you out of your funk, some of those type tones, just the aspect of having some of that flair, just like, hey, you know, fuck this, I'm ready to get towards it, hop to like duties, that sort of stuff, just within the pitch behind it. It's just a good type concept, kind of get you. I mean, I don't know if this feels as much full bound like morning type music or something you'd listen to. I mean, I would almost think in certain senses probably could be like 8 o'clock a.m. and 10 o'clock a.m. type music, just getting a coffee at Starbucks, some of that type fare, and heading to work, just, you know, snap to it, kind of just that grin and bear it type tone within the pitch, just a little bit in a cheerier sense, but it's just kind of the aspect that it just has that particular tone, and just one of those ones that you probably heard every day, like in the mid 2000s. It seems like it has that durability about it, but it was the #1 single, so it's a pretty good tone for that. Now, there's actually one single. This album is going to get a 10 out of 10, but there are 2 songs out of the 14 on here I don't recommend, and one of which is Jesus Take the Wheel. The unfortunate thing about this song is it just kind of felt like more of just like kind of like a countryside kind of stretcher within the pitch, but the lazy kind of ambience about it was just not as affable, full bound, I'd have to say. It's just kind of a tone. I mean, I just feel like the rest of the singles just nailed the particular vibe. This was just one that just, I mean, it kind of felt like one of those ones of more of like a coming of age kind of just hop to it and just kind of get towards like the aspect of having a little bit more like tones as far as like more rougher responsibilities just within the pitch behind it, but this was kind of within the time. And this does have some of that on here, but it's just within the pitch that one just kind of felt a little bit more, or just less melded within the tone of how the delivery of it kind of happened. It was just not as, quite as affable. That doesn't happen very often on here. I don't know the full bound age that Carrie Underwood was. I assume she was like 19, 20, 18, somewhere within that fair as far as those pitch can happen. It's just within the pitch about it. So, good type bitch. She might actually be older than that, but I just look after it. Some Hearts was the second official single. Well, actually, yeah, Some Hearts was the next single after Jesus Take the Wheel. It's like a vintage kind of MySpace era day after hours commerce kind of get here. Just a mild kind of joyride type music I would definitely feel like about this one. Just snag goodies. I would definitely feel like, you know, get some Burger King, get some Arby's, some of that type of just basic car commerce, just after work shift kind of just embrace as far as this pitch kind of happen. Just a good vibe type song kind of get. So one of those type ones. Emo bands are pretty good at this. Just that car type music that you just would have with you and your pals as far as those pitches can happen. Just a good type mode where you're not quite in like full blown workout. You're not quite in full blown work type mentality, but it's also not quite at the bar just yet. Just kind of the pitch of like joyride type music, just with the tone, just that embrace of just like probably a good 80, 90, 100 minutes of just like some good type times of just kind of being in conduit of figuring out what you're going to do before either going to like some venue, or just the concept of just like to cruise around and just some activities of just like smoking. I don't know if Carrie Underwood smokes, but just like some smokage near a vehicle in like a parking lot, some of those type fairs. Not to recommend that if it's illegal, but just within the pitch of just smokage around, get like a burger, some of that type fare, just some standard chit chat and like some joyride type music fare, just good type tone. It's one of those type ones. This feels very vintage, like the MySpace, when you think of folks like Plain White Tees and like Green, or not Green Day, but Weezer, some of those type folks. There's some other ones in there. I just can't think of them as full bound. Kind of just like some of those just evening type ones. I'd say music of like typical kind of alternative rock type dredge in there. Just feels like this feels like a very vanilla kind of evening dredge of a song from like the MySpace era, as far as those pitch can have. So a good type tone for that. Don't Forget to Remember Me is the fourth single. Now this is like a stretching kind of late day summer traverse to kind of get here. This ballad song's like a stretching kind of late day summer traverse ballad to kind of get within that tone. Just a country fried kind of sunset gaze kind of have within that pitch. Now there are two variations of this particular song. There's some stretchers on here. It's kind of amongst the concept of some traverse. I'd say one of which is Don't Forget to Remember Me. The other one is Wasted. Wasted is a little bit more this contemporary within the pitch, not quite as lazy, but the slower tempo, the more down tempo of the two of them would be Don't Forget to Remember Me. This is just a lot more like a sunset gaze, this kind of romantic type fare, just a more aspect of this kind of peering and more kind of kindled kind of peering as far as this pitch can happen with it. So it's just within the pitch, just a little bit more of like more emotive, more strength to emote, just what I'd say within that tone behind it. But some good type fare, just some good ones here. I mean, the concept behind this particular song is just the concept of this moving out and some of those type pitches, just the tone as far as getting ready to have some big days as far as just independence further and pitches like that, just in the tone behind it's just some good type frolic for that. But probably one of the best songs out this album in terms of one of the most immediate ones I would go for. I do like quite a few of these songs in here. Some Hearts is definitely a nice one. I do appreciate the appeal, Don't Forget to Remember Me, but probably one of the best ones, and this is the most popular song according to Spotify, has almost 700 million plays, is Before He Cheats. This is like a smoky kind of sunset. It's like a smoky kind of sunset after hours frolic and ramble to kind of get about this particular song. This is a mid-gathering kind of music for you and a few pals, I just what I'd say, and like a primer for some social nights as far as this pitch can happen. There's not really as much a full-bound kind of karaoke dance night type song, but this is definitely one that has that relative kind of contemporary energy. Probably on the right day could probably be at least one. I mean, there's not a full bound ton of this like cut loose type moments, but I feel like at least some Hearts and Before He Cheats have that relative type appeal of the loosen up, but just some good type times, maybe having a beer or two within your system. Probably not many. I would say not like the tone behind this would probably not be too many more beers than two or three, I'd say, but it's just in the pitch, the initial kind of kickback and just the aspect of it. Once again, I don't think Carrie Underwood was over 21, so it's just in the pitch at least being able to have some of that type of release, going to like a dance club, something like that to cut loose a bit, but it's just kind of a primer for some of that. Just definitely need another song like this. This has a lot of good spark and appeal about it that this showcases like, hey, this could be like some good kind of country dance hops as far as this pitch can happen, but it works within it. Just has that good spark of what it does. It's real nice primer for that. Very catchy song within the chorus. This overall smoky type appeal that works. And then Before He Cheats is like or not Before He Cheats, but Wasted is the fifth official single, the sixth single total. It's like a simmering kind of evening vanilla trekking to kind of get here. It's a typical kind of 2000s country, I'd say, about this particular song. Just some late day hop to kind of get within that pitch behind it. Just relative relief. So songs like some relative relief / warming up as far as this pitch kind of happens. So this kind of melding, he's kind of melding with Bella's, just warming up some of those type pitches of just the initial kind of awkward kind of moments, getting kind of kinked out as far as those pitches would kind of happen. Just the moments of just getting some relief, just that after worship type vibe, just real vibing type music, just in the sense of like some evening country type fare, I'd have to say, within the tone behind it. This works for what it is. I just look after the concept as far as saying this one's a little bit more like kind of after like the after effect of like the joyride type appeal. Some Hearts kind of goes. This is like one where it's a little bit later in the evening, just in the pitch, and just like a more kind of just starting to gum down a bit, kind of trekking as far as this pitch can happen, where it starts to reach like tumult as far as those pitches can happen, and just as far as it's kind of like, all right, let's figure out what we're going to do, just in the pitch behind it. This becomes a little bit more, it kind of slows down a bit within the pitch behind it, so it's just within the tone, but Wasted, it just kind of comes to like a slow down and more gazing within the sense behind it. But it is a nice one, good type of appeal. So yeah, just some good type singles on here, just the pitch behind it of just getting like appreciable kind of summer. So that's the concept of the singles as far as those pitches can happen. But I basically look within the tone, like I was saying, off this album, I only really don't recommend two songs on here, which would just be be, like I was saying, Jesus Take the Wheel, and then I Ain't in Shakota Anymore. So talk about Jesus Take the Wheel. Basically, this one here, just to say once again with this one, this is just kind of more of like a coming of age type one, just with a little bit more rough draft type delivery behind it. Just didn't have as much full bound kind of just the normal charm of this particular album. It's not to say it wasn't as full bound catchy as just within the pitch. It just felt a little, just did not have like the overall vivid type of appeal. And this is a pretty popular song just in the pitch. I mean, this is one where critics kind of disagree with me more with just within the pitch behind, but I feel like it just has the same type of tone of like a song like Don't Forget to Remember Me, just in that same sort of appeal behind it. And there's some other ones on here I'd probably say like I Ain't in Shakota Anymore, just without the melodrama. I'd have to say there's just some ones on here, starts with the Goodbye, some of these type of ones that just feel like a concept of diss going on and just kind of embarking on some travel and some traverse and journeys as far as those pitches kind of happen just within the tone behind it. But I just look after like the aspect, it just wasn't as full bound just within the tone as far as full bound being catchy. But I look after it's the same kind of pitch with I Ain't in Shakota Anymore. That particular one just kind of had like the tone as far as being just like a particular song that was just trying to have like some summer hop about it with like a song like We're Young and Beautiful, but just not as full bound catchy within the tone behind it. This is kind of a frivolous type one that just felt like a cut loose, but it just for some reason didn't have like the same kind of catchy type of feel. It was just kind of, I do think this is like a warming type one, but just the aspect behind it just was like one of the more ones that just didn't have like the complete kind of this is another one that somehow didn't have the normal charm that it particularly was kind of having within that aspect. So it's just been the tone, but those are the only two ones. So this album still gets a 10 out of 10 here. Just to be able to recommend some of these type of ones, but yeah, like a better variation, like the way that the song I Ain't in Shakota Anymore was pulled off, would definitely be with the song We're Young and Beautiful. It's like a nice day hop kind of summer antics to kind of get here. This one goes with Before He Cheats. I'd have to say just in a more afternoon type fare. I'd have to say about this one. It's kind of more just park type music, summer cookout, barbecue type fare, just in the pitch as far as those particular aspects can happen. There's actually not a ton of songs like this on this particular album. Most of this is just kind of more smoky evening type fare, just in the aspect of like the after hours, just like some kickback around just like neighborhood crawls as far as those pitch can happen. But this is actually like a tone just more amongst like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd have to say within the pitch behind it, just has like that, just has that particular type fare of being able to get towards some of those type of ones. There are some ones on here that also have I really like the clever concept of like the night before life goes on. This is one. This is another one that also pulls off the vibe of Jesus Take the Wheel just a lot better. I'd have to say it's like a giddy feeling of like a big day tomorrow. I'd have to say about this particular song, just a probably can't sleep type song kind of get here. Just just probably tossing and turning, just maybe not so much a song you'd listen to before you go to sleep, but just the aspect of realizing that you may not be able to sleep within the pitch behind it, just like a glaze. It's just a very glazed type song kind of get here, just kind of the aspect of just like, hey, I'm moving tomorrow, something like that as far as this pitch can happen. But it's just a good idea of a song kind of get within that pitch. Just like the excitement. This would be a good concept for some rap songs as far as this pitch kind of happen, just kind of like, hey, just probably if you were to look after within an aspect of maybe like, my homie's moving away tomorrow, some pitches like that, I got to smoke with my homie, something like that, you just would have to say, just the aspect as far as some of those type fares kind of happen within the pitch behind it. Just has the aspect of just giving you that goosebumps kind of giddiness just within the tone behind it. It's a good concept being able to have some good times, good designated type song, be able to have that. There's some extra ones on here. Lessons Learned is a pretty nice one. This like a looking back kind of Tuesday commerce kind of get here, and by Tuesday commerce I just look after the tone. Not quite the Monday jur, but just the aspect of just kind of reflecting on like past problems that you've had. Just the concept of owning up to it and just kind of saying, hey, shucks, some of that type fair, but just kind of being like, screw it in the same sense. Just kind of like, oh well, basic kind of get errands done type music and shrug type music. Just kind of the concept of it within that standard fare, and just some grab sonic type tunes. Just standard kind of date afternoon. Just kind of the frolic of just like, hey, just melding as far as those pitches can happen with it. Just the aspect of this how some of that type fare would kind of happen. But it kind of goes with like the standard makeshift of this product. I mean, this one's almost kind of like a little bit of like a frolic type song, just in the aspect, not quite as full bound recreational as Before He Cheats or Some Hearts Are Wasted, but just within the pitch of having some of that relative type fare of just kind of realizing that there probably is work the next day, but just being able to go grab like a basic beer or two and like a snack or something like that, just basic kind of date evening, some of that type fare, just kind of the commerce and just like standard activity, but just not as full bound kind of just like cut loose, I'd say. But it's just a good aspect to have like a good depot, something of like some relative fun to be able to have. Not to say this album isn't fun, but just within the concept of just, diverting away from like the standard work shift as far as those pitch can happen. And there's also some smoky type songs in here. I do like a lot of these. So a real nice one would be I Just Can't Live a Lie. It's like a smoky kind of personal evening commute to kind of get here. Just some deep thought. Makeshift, I would definitely say, and this like some nice ambience kind of get within that tone. There's some other ones like that on here. Like I would also say That's Where It Is and Starts With Goodbye are some extra type ones within that fare, but I do like the production fare on I Just Can't Live a Lie. All three of these songs, I Just Can't Live a Lie, That's Where It Is, and Starts With Goodbye, all have like some piercing kind of piano type ballad type feels on there. They feel very similar to like Evanescence from like 2003, some of those type pitches. This gives like Carrie Underwood definitely gives some Amy Lee type vibes, Avril Lavigne type vibes, just within like that moodiness. I like the aspect of some of this moody country type fare, just in the tone, just like some rainy day kind of Wednesday, Monday type music, just with the tone behind it. That's I Just Can't Live a Lie is definitely a nice one. Just a real highlight on here that has some of that type of feel. Taylor Swift's pretty good at these haze type songs as well. That's Where It Is a nice one. Also, there's like a piercing kind of makeshift stretch to kind of get within that tone. This feels like an MTV staple and real talk kind of sobering moment to kind of have within those pitches. And it's a pretty catchy song. I would definitely say that That's Where It Is just feels like one of those songs that you would listen to on MTV or VH1, where the character, the main draw, gets like their shit together as far as those pitches kind of happen, learns from the mistake, and it's just like, all right, gotta improve as far as those pitches can happen and get on, get back on the grind as far as those pitches can happen. Just some real like the appeal of this real talk type song, just some sobering type ones. But the thing about Carrie Underwood's sobering type moments is they just have the aspect behind a lot of this. There is a lot of like stone face on here as far as this pitch can happen. It does have like some frivolity with it, with songs like Some Hearts and Before He Cheats and some of those type ones, and a little bit of Wasted. But it also has the moment of just like, hey, hop into it, and just having like the standard kind of just push of like the standard kind of blue collar kind of grind within the pitch behind it. So it does have that tone of just not being like slouch as far as those pitch can happen, just within the tone that there are some ones on here just in like a romantic type aspect. I mean, this is very much for your personal life, but just has the aspect of still being straight laced enough to not, have difficulties as far as those pitch can happen. So I like the tone as far as those pitch can happen with it. So this definitely, I feel like That's Where It Is I definitely feel like That's Where It Is feels like an MTV staple as far as those pitch can happen. And then Starts With Goodbye is another nice one as well. It's like a moody kind of rainy day commerce kind of get here. This one goes with like the nice real talk type songs to kind of get off this product. And I had saying this is like some piercing hazes to kind of get here. I'd probably say Starts With Goodbye is like the most brooding of like these songs on here, and like some of these real talk type songs, but it just has a good aspect of like some rainy day type traverse as far as those pitch can happen. Good for that fare. And then Whenever You Remember is a nice one as well, as like a simmering kind of Sunday music to kind of get here, almost gospel like, but just within a country type aspect of it. Just a basic reflect and sunset gaze kind of get within those pitches about it. Just kind of definite 6 o'clock p.m. type pitch as far as those pitches kind of happen. Just some nice melodrama to kind of get here. So there is some melodrama about this product, which I do like the overall kind of just like dramatic type flair of this particular product. Just that extra type aspect. Trying to think of some folks that kind of do that. I mean, I want to say Avril Lavigne was pretty good at that, so it's just an interesting aspect that Carrie Underwood has some pages out of Avril Lavigne, and to a lesser extent Kelly Clarkson's kind of playbook. Just some of that kind of almost gothic kind of songstress type edge. Amy Lee's pretty good at these also as far as those pitch can happen. This kind of aspect, despite the fact that this is pretty tapioca country, it's not within the aspect of being like dressed up in spikes and like studs and pitches like that and tattoos and some of that type of, but it's just within the aspect of being able to say it does have that relative edge of just like, hey, this is kind of smoky here. It's just within the tone, just the aspect of having like that kind of more just like, I would almost say just kind of like edgy country just within the pitch behind it. It's vanilla. It's definitely like a banner vanilla factory album out of the 2000s for like country music, but it's just within the tone that it does have like a certain kind of edge factor about it. It just is different. I mean, I definitely feel like I would have to say Carrie Underwood's just a little bit edgier than Taylor Swift as far as those pitches can happen, just within the tone. And folks like Ariana Grande, or not even the Ariana Grande is not country, but just compared to some pop starlets out there, it's just in the pitch. But yeah, that's just kind of tone. So yeah, every song on here I recommend, minus those two songs as far as those pitches can happen. I think I talked about every single one on here, just in the tone behind it. So this album gets a 10 out of 10. So in terms of the social score, I'll probably give the social score probably like a 9.5 out of 10. I mean, it did get 6 singles within the pitch, had a number 1, but I'm surprised that this album did not have more number 1s. So just kind of within the pitch, a lot of those American Idol stars that kind of happened, they were big at the very beginning, but later on they kind of started to kind of get brought back down to earth as far as those pitches kind of happen. I noticed it happened with Ruben Studdard and Kelly Clarkson, folks like that. There are probably some other ones in there like that. like I forget his like Adam, like I want to say like Adam Lambert, some of those type of folks that just had their initial type moments. But I'm surprised this album did last for a long time, but just off the crest behind it did not actually get any further number one. So it had some good appeal, but this was not quite as much. I mean, it did go 9 tons platinum pitches like that, but it's just not as much of a full bound anchor. And then on top of that, like I just would have to say that just within the tone that in terms of like the sociable type moments, for the most part, the biggest moment off this product in terms of like TGIF type appeal would probably be Before He Cheats. Some Hearts is a pretty nice joyride type song. Waste is like a more simmered down version of that. There is some sunset gazing on here. Some songs like I Just Can't Live a Lie and Starts with Goodbye and some of those type ones. Some good smoky type moments for some hangout type fare and like a more moody and kind of like in a more moody or kind of contrary type sense to kind of get within that tone. But it just has the aspect of just being able to say that just within that it's not. I realized that Carrie Underwood was probably a minor around this time, but it's not as much like a full blown kind of social bonanza as much as what you might think. I mean, it has the moments on here of like some relative kind of hangout kickback within a modest kind of sense, but it doesn't really get too much higher than modest, I'd say. So, I mean, I'm still going to have the score pretty high. It's a 9.5. I realize the way I'm saying, you'd probably think I would give it like an 8 or a 7.5 or something like that, but the quality of it is on here. It's just not as much like a jolt as full bound. Just understand that Before He Cheats and Some Hearts, the title track, are probably like the most immediate moments in terms of like some social crazy. So I'd say 9.5 social. In terms of the future, I'm not as full bound sure what Carrie Underwood's been up to in these recent times. I know she probably at least I want to say she has some 2020 albums in there. I do know that her next album after this one is Carnival Rides. We'll have to get some of those as far as those pitch can happen. This is a virtual classic here, just to be able to say that, or this is a full bound classic here as far as those pitch can happen. Just very impactful out of the 2000s pitches like that. Just notable seminal type product. Did a lot of things right. Just was the aspect behind it. So yeah, it's just easy enough to recommend and just the 2000s decade staple.